Hi, Alex here with Reality Checks on MGTOW. This is Post 2, Part 2, the first check. The Reality Checks on MGTOW channel attempts to answer the question, is what MGTOW says about the nature of women and the nature of relationships between men and women a credible account? So, where are we now? The last post, Post 2, Part 1, provided some background on motivations for doing reality checks on MGTOW and introduced the first check. This is a case study. Okay, so it just happens to concern a relationship I have that's been going on for 5 years. I admit that at least half of what I'm doing in this case study is trying to understand the relationship and assess where it might go from here. You'll have to judge for yourself whether you're witnessing the conversion of a blue pill man, a white knight even, to the red pill, or whether it's a challenge to the MGTOW belief system. So, will the MGTOW analysis hold up? Is it a useful framework for understanding what's going on? And if so, what are the implications for the relationship? And what, in the course of this, are we learning about MGTOW, and indeed any other system of belief? So here goes with my analysis of the case, through the lens of the MGTOW belief system. Feel free to give me your views, just so long as I can feel free to agree, disagree, or ignore them. So how does the case study match the MGTOW propositions? To what extent does my 5-year relationship partner conform to the MGTOW characterization of a woman? First, does she use sexual power? Well, the answer's yes. She uses sex to lure, reward, and withholds to distance and punish. Although I have to say she doesn't withhold physical contact manipulatively, only if I've upset her. Second, does she have a different system of knowing the world? Well, yes. In this case, it's a belief system based on religion and on the idea that if you believe it, it will happen, and if you see it a certain way, it will be that way. This, interestingly, has elements of the postmodern, and although I share a male sense of belief based on evidence and reason, I feel I'm learning something from the way she looks at things. But does she have a different system of knowing the world in a MGTOW sense? Well, yes again. She's a more connected lateral thinker than a separate vertical thinker, reference 10. She rarely thinks in a vertical reasoned way, although she has a strong tendency in argument to see black and white rather than shades of grey. Third, use of logic and reason. Largely absent, I'd say. Reason is not her strong card, although that doesn't mean that she's weak at argument or lacks intelligence. She makes some good points, but often you can see the cogs turning as she comes to some realization. Most interesting to me is that she refuses to engage in discussion or debate about the relationship. She walks away at any attempt to resolve differences through discussion. There's no way that she will involve herself in negotiation, and she rarely wants to go near developing a shared understanding. Because she has her well-developed skills in using her sexuality to get what she wants, she will not go near argument and debate where she's on much weaker ground. Reference 9. Fourth, is she hedonistic? Yes, she's only interested in what pleases her. She wants immediate gratification. She's not interested in anything that doesn't confer near-term benefit. However, this is only in terms of the relationship. In other contexts, she's spiritual, and she'll sacrifice her own benefit to her extended family, for instance. She'll also give up time for the church, helping the homeless, the socially disadvantaged, and the elderly. Fifth, does she act according to Breifeldt's law, and is she hypergamous? Well, this is untested, but by hanging on to the betrothed, she may be maximising her benefit if she returns with him to her home country. She appears to be hedging her bets and willing to switch depending on perceived future benefits. Next, is she solipsistic? Well, definitely. For many years we maintained the joke that she was the queen, whose will had to be done, and I was her subject. Rebellion was dealt with on the principle that any bad I gave to her, she would pay me back twice over. There was only one point of view that mattered, hers. Furthermore, the findings from the literature that women tend to make moral judgments based on emotion, whereas men tend to make them more on abstract principles of fairness, reference 15, is reflected in the way she'll judge what's right based on how it affects her, and will not listen to any arguments based on principle. There's also a characteristic that may be partly explained by the findings, reference 16, on the differential in gender attraction. She wants to change me. She spends a good amount of her time telling me what's wrong with me and chastising me for not doing things for her well enough or fast enough. This is understandable if she believes that I'm not good enough for her, and in order to resolve the dilemma this entails, she needs to close the gap and make me good enough to be her equal. However, to confuse the issue, she will on occasions tell me how funny I am, how skilled and intelligent I am, and how strong I am. I suspect that she sometimes genuinely feels that, and other times it's a manipulation to get something she wants. Fortunately, the manipulative behaviour is so transparent, or so I like to believe, that I can see it for what it is, and make it explicit, and we can joke about it. In some sense, we both know what's going on. In the wanting to change my behaviour, she is showing interest, but there is a dimension of power and control. I'm guessing that this is not only a mechanism for overcoming her feelings of oppression, both long-term and perhaps also with respect to me, but also touches on theories about the relationship between well-being on the one hand and A, predictability, orientation, that is, knowing where you're located in some physical or conceptual space, and B, control, the ability to change things in predictable ways, on the other hand. Another factor is what the MGTOW community call the shit test, reference 18. This involves the woman making unreasonable and outlandish demands. There's also no doubt that I'm subjected to the shit test. In fact, on occasions, it's just one shit test after another. This is both a test of the boundaries of her control and, as MGTOW say, a test of psychological strength. There are two opposing forces at play. The more you do, the more you demonstrate your love, consideration, willingness and ability to provide, and lack of oppression. However, do too much and you demonstrate weakness, and that makes you undesirable. So, the trick here is knowing where to draw the line, where to set the boundaries. Lastly, there's the question of investment in the relationship and return on investment, a subject that I've not yet researched the MGTOW perspective on, if one exists. First, let me deal with the tangible investments. From my point of view, I'm investing my resources and my time. I contain these to what I get in terms of immediate return and otherwise what I'm prepared to lose. I see my return as the pleasure and esteem gained from psychological and physical intimacy, as well as the education I'm getting from the discussions we have, see the next post, and studying her behaviour. Meanwhile, she appears to invest very little. She'll give me value if it just happens, but is careful that it's not value that costs her. So, for example, even in sex, we do predominantly what she wants. Also, as our relationship has to be kept clandestine, I can't reap the presumed benefits of having a trophy girlfriend, and I'm not even allowed to take photos of her, except with her own camera. I can use my camera in exceptional circumstances, i.e. when there's no space on her camera and she can't bear the thought of not capturing the moment. But in 5 years, there's only been one photo of her and I together, while by contrast I have many photos taken with me and other attractive women who are just friends. While she invests little, she's got some good returns. With my help, she's learnt to drive and run a car, and she's got through her course as well as working, and has helped her family back home. All in all, investment-wise, we're both up on the deal. It costs her very little, and she's made some significant gains in her life. It's cost me modestly, and it's helped me a great deal in recovering from a difficult patch in my life. However, economics is not as simple as that. I look at intangible investments in the next part. As I write this, I could easily be horrified how well my girlfriend fits the MGTOW prototype, and also how I conform to the prototype of the blue pill man, reference 24. This certainly helps validate MGTOW as a coherent system of belief. Put the MGTOW template over the case study and it fits. Very little is out of place. However, there's more to it than that, and the next part, post 2 part 3, will elaborate on that. Some people will be shocked that I know all this and still put up with it. Some people may think less of me for it. Looking to the MGTOW community for comment feels like putting the relationship on a spit and cooking it to carbon over a raging fire. But she won't discuss it, and I have a need to work it out, so that's part of why I'm here, and if it's to be a judgment by fire, then that's what it has to be. The implication of all this is that as far as MGTOW is concerned, I'm exposing myself to a high degree of risk. I feel the onus is on me to provide some sort of justification. Well, part 3 provides that justification. Also, of course, I have to decide what direction I'm going to take now with respect to the relationship. Will I continue to go her way, or will I turn off and go my own way?